Hey there, EB here on the Anything But Bland Weekly Update. It's Hump Day Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to everybody. Usually do this on Thursday or Friday, but I'm flying with Renee to Phoenix, Arizona. I'm going to be speaking to the Dirty 30, who are the 30 best domestic family law lawyers in the country, and they have a big interest in Murdaugh. So I'm going to speak to them about the Murdaugh case, my book, Anything But Bland, as well as I'm doing a PowerPoint on all of the rules of the road of the rules of professional conduct and the standard of care that both Alex Murdaugh and Corey Fleming violated as lawyers in handling the Satterfield wrongful death claim. So that should be interesting. So today's installment will not be as long as the last two, which approached an hour, and I apologize. I got really verbose. There's some important things that we are talking about today. Jim Comey today had his arraignment for his charges of obstruction of justice and lying under oath to federal officials in Congress. He pleaded not guilty. He has a very, very powerful defense attorney. Matthew Fitzpatrick, I think is his name, was a former U.S. attorney for Chicago. A really, really smart, really well-respected U.S. attorney, former U.S. attorney. Wouldn't surprise me if these charges ultimately are dismissed before they're even heard on the merits because of the political motivation that Trump voiced in having these charges brought against one of his political enemies. So that's an interesting thing. Now, there was an FBI officer fired this week as a result of Trump pressuring Kash Patel to fire him. Who was that FBI officer? It was an FBI official that arrested James Comey, and Trump was pissed off that he didn't perp walk him in handcuffs and push his head down into the police car and walk him into court or the jail, federal jail, as some hardened criminals are done, is done to them. It should be noted for all of Trump's criminal charges, they never perp walked him, they never handcuffed him, but it really is unseemly for an FBI agent to be fired because he didn't perp walk his former boss. I just think that we are heading into such dangerous territory. There was an article this week in the New York Times. They interviewed the 50 most heralded legal scholars in our country today who have uniformly said that the rule of law is not only bent, it's broken. It finally got broken by Pam Bondi. If you watched her yesterday in front of the senators who were questioning him about the Comey charges and other personal vendettas that Trump has voiced, that he wants Fannie Willis, he wants Letitia James, he wants Adam Schiff, he wants John Bolton, and he wants Jack Smith, the former prosecutor of both the documents case in Florida, as well as the prosecutor in the Washington, D.C. January 6th insurrection case. He wants all of them prosecuted. I just think that we're really heading down a bad trail. I do want to give props to both the Trump administration as well as to Bobby Kennedy, and I don't do that often. But I read this morning that in January they ended a lot of the practice of doing scientific experiments, on animals. Trump was greatly offended by this when he really heard a lot of this, and I am offended by it. It really breaks my heart. I read that there are animal research that they've done on monkeys with smog, where they put them in a glass cage and they release smog, and the monkeys are pushing their hands up against the glass. Clearly, they are gasping for air. I think it's disgusting. A Harvard lab studied facial recognition by taking baby monkeys from their mothers and modifying their ability to see, at one point, even suturing their eyes closed. Just a barbaric practice. It breaks my heart. And I'm very proud of the president and Bobby Kennedy. And again, I don't say that lightly because I disagree with them probably 90% of the time. Um, the Department of Agriculture studied infected kittens with parasites, partly by forcing them to eat raw flesh from other cats. I just think it's disgusting. Um, the Institute of Health Laboratory deliberately sickened eagles with pathogenic bacteria to study lethal infections. Um, we have to figure out a way to test products and do something different without harming animals. Now, back to certain criticisms. J.D. Vance said it was a really funny thing that President Trump, as a result of the government shutdown, posted Hakeem Jeffries having a sombrero and a Mexican mustache, and Senator Schumer using a voice saying that the immigrants will get health insurance, Mexican immigrants and Latino immigrants. I think it's a disgrace. I think any type of jokes that are being played when people are not getting paid, these federal workers, is a real disgrace. It's offensive. These are people. These are people with jobs, people with families, people who have mortgages, car payments, life insurance payments, daycare for their children. And to make jokes and to post memes of federal workers acting like they're zombies, looking like they're zombies, and walking like the Walking Dead in front of the unemployment office is just beyond anything that I've ever seen. And Trump happily posting a picture of him being the Grim Reaper. Trump, as I have discussed, said this is a perfect opportunity for me to accomplish all the things that I want to accomplish by eliminating federal workers uh, and canceling um, allocations of funds that have already been appropriated by Congress to blue cities. He, as I said last week, wants to cancel $80 billion worth of transportation upgrades to the New York City subway system with a new tunnel. He wants to cancel all programs that go to Democratic cities. He even said that he will not be reimbursing all federal workers once the government shutdown is completed. That's historically never happened before. Every single government employee gets their back pay who have been furloughed. Trump said that there's certain workers that don't deserve back pay after they've been furloughed, people that he disagreed with. Again, these are people. These are people who work and dedicate their life. Every single federal worker is not a lazy person or somebody on the dole or somebody that's not doing their job, as Trump has indicated. It's really offensive to me. I feel for these people. Look, I can live many, 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 many months if I didn't make income because of the amount of money that I've been fortunate to have made and saved in my life. But there are some workers that work for an annual salary in the 50 to 70 to $80,000 or $40,000, and if they lose a paycheck, it dramatically affects their life. I just am disgusted by this shutdown. I think that both parties need to figure out a way to talk. The health insurance costs are through the roof. I get it that these Affordable Care Act subsidies were enacted during COVID and they're very costly, but so is the tax cuts that Trump has given the very wealthy are very, very costly. So we need to figure out a way to um, lower the healthcare costs. We need to open the government and people need to get paid. France yesterday went through their fifth prime minister in 2 years. This new one was only in office for 14 hours. He was sworn in, formed a cabinet, and immediately he resigned because of the pressure that the far right, Nigel, I forget Nigel's last name, but his party, both in France and in England, are really gaining strength. And so France is in absolute disarray. They're calling for new parliamentary elections. I think Macron's days are numbered. I absolutely am keeping my fingers crossed about President Trump and the discussions that are being had with Hamas and the Israelis, as well as some of the Arab countries. I think that it's a pretty interesting proposal that Trump has put forward to end the Gaza war. The question is Hamas willing to put down their weapons and not be armed? And is Israel willing to back off and form a border that's much not as far inland in Gaza as they wanted, and also stopping the settlements on the West Bank? I think it's a tall order to get Israel and Hamas to agree to anything. And that's why Donald Rumsfeld said, if you got a problem and you can't solve it, make the problem bigger. And what that means is, because these two parties can't settle their differences, let's bring in the larger group of more Middle Eastern countries and Europe and the United States that will be the governing body in there. So I think that's a pretty good thing. Michael Benery is the Virginia U.S. attorney who was fired this week. He was a terrorism expert. He knows more about jihad. And it was perceived that he was not overly enthusiastic about prosecuting Comey. He was on the team. So this is a guy, we just lost his brain power, his brain trust, that was an expert on terrorism, that has many, many jihad convictions. And he was fired because he was not overly enthusiastic about prosecuting Comey. A federal judge ruled that the trafficking charges against Abrego Garcia were politically motivated in retaliation for him suing the Trump administration over his deportation, and those charges may end up being dismissed. President Trump said that there are some people that are not deserving to be paid as federal government employees, and there are people that are not deserving to get food subsidies through the WIC program. Can we just slow this down and realize that there's lives of real people and their families who are at stake? Russ Voss, who's the OMB budget director, Trump sent out a photo of him as the Grim Reaper, cutting all the programs, that this is what he has been designed to do. Shame on Representative Goldman for saying that it was Trump supporters that lit Diane Goodstein, Judge Goodstein, former Senator Arnold Goodstein's house on fire. Turns out that Chief Keel from SLED said it wasn't arson. And there were some comments made by Dan Goldman saying that it was done, as a result of Stephen Miller's, who's the, Darth Vader of Trump's administration. He's a policy director. It's based on his rhetoric. He's now in a fight with AOC, who commented about that he's so short, and he commented back about her that her boyfriend must have a short, when they have sex. It's got to stop, folks. This is just sophomoric at this point. This back and forth of humiliation and trying to do this. Diane Goodstein lost her house. Her 81-year-old husband had to jump out of a window, broke his hip and legs, and was airlifted. They had to be rescued by kayaks. I mean, somebody's life, their livelihood. Can you imagine your house that everything burns down? So let's just lower the rhetoric. House members have voted to table a censure resolution against Representative Ilhan Omar over comments following the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Let me be clear. I despise this woman. I despise what she stands for. I despise the rhetoric that she puts forth. I don't like the squad. I'm not an AOC fan. I'm not the fan of the other girl, Prablangle from, I think that's her name. She's from Washington. She's also part of it. They got rid of the guy Bowman, who lost his election. Um, if you look at how much money these supposedly poor House representatives before they were elected are now worth over $1 million. Ilmar and AOC. It's a complete joke. Um, the House tabled the measure, and there were some Republican lawmakers, Mike Flood, Tom McClintock, Jeff Hurd, and Corey Mills, who joined the Democrats in tabling the measure on that she should not be censored. I think she should be censored. Um, Clarence Thomas made a statement that he said, I do not believe in Supreme Court precedent entirely. He's been a vocal critic of the rigid adherence of the term stare and the legal principle stare decisis. His judicial philosophy, known as originalism, emphasizing interpreting the Constitution based on its original meaning. Okay, so here's what we have. You had the Roe v. Wade decision in 1972. Was it constitutionally based? Was it flawed reasoning? There could be a real good argument on it. But in 1992, Sandra Day O'Connor, who was a Republican conservative Supreme Court jurist during the Rehnquist court, Rehnquist was a conservative, had an opportunity to review Roe v. Wade, and they affirmed it. So that is becomes stare decisis. You can have a Supreme Court decision. It can be erroneous. It should be reviewed by a subsequent Supreme Court. But once that subsequent Supreme Court reviews it and determines it's still valid and a legitimate decision, then you can't overturn it. And so what Clarence Thomas has expressed is he is going to do his best when the case comes before him to reverse the fact that gays can marry. He doesn't believe it's constitutionally based. And in the same logic, even though that he's interracially married to a white woman, he believes that the Loving versus Virginia decision in the 60s, where miscegenation was finally outlawed, where there were laws that say blacks couldn't marry whites, that's not a constitutionally sound decision either. So get ready for the birthright citizenship case. I think they're going to cut back on that, even though it's expressly stated in the Constitution that if you're born on United States soil, you become an American citizen. Trump canceled $94 million in food to Central Louisiana. I'm sure Mike Johnson isn't appreciative of that, or is Senator Cassidy. They're from Louisiana. Senator Cassidy has finally had enough with Kennedy and the this vaccination committee that is giving new guidelines out there. Remember, the rubella, mumps, measles were a 3-in-1 vaccination. They now only want them to be done one at a time. The fact that they are going to be done one at a time, less people are going to become vaccinated. They have also said that if you're going to get a COVID vaccine, you have to go through your physician first and discuss it with your physician. Again, the more hoops you put in front of people to have to get vaccinated, they won't. Cassidy said that he clearly was wrong in thinking that Kennedy would support existing vaccination policies. And I think he regrets his vote, although he hasn't said that yet, but it's coming. A Texas televangelist who is a key confidant of Trump, who Trump uses as his spiritual and faith advisor. Guess what, folks? He got only 6 months for sexually abusing a 12-year-old girl as part of his mega church. Where does that fit in, President Trump and all you evangelicals out there? Where does that fit in? That a guy that's behind the pulpit telling us how moral we should act is having sex with a 12-year-old girl and only gets 6 months. it is amazing to me. Um, Robert Morris admitted to 5 counts of lewd acts with a child, all felonies. Um, his plea deal in Oklahoma resulted in a suspended 10-year sentence that will only require him to serve 6 months in a county jail. He's also been ordered to pay $250,000 in restitution and will have to be registered as a sex offender. Um, President Trump is trying to unleash the military on our cities. There are many politicians, Republicans, who are very concerned that this violates again the Posse Commissar law that was enacted after the Civil War. Um, I'm proud of the judge because this was a Trump appointee who said we must stop these deployments in our American cities. Um, the president cannot be allowed the power to deploy military internally as he wishes. This is a fundamental. This is fundamental. Fundamental. This is what we fought the American Revolution over: that the king can unleash his army against its own citizens. Um, After declining to give a Trump to President Trump, a sword to President Trump, so he could give it to King Charles. Um, when President Trump went over there, President Trump had to give a replica. He wanted to give an original sword um, that was from one of our museums. The museum leader said, no, it's got to be uh, approved by Congress, and Congress has to order that it's okay to give away relics that are in our national archives. Guess what Trump did? He fired the guy. He fired the museum leader. Um, Democratic Virginia Attorney General, hopeful Jay Jones, fantasized in 2022 about assassinating then State House Speaker Todd Gilbert in Virginia, and that he should get shot in the head. This totally disqualifies him. I think he should drop out of the race. Again, this is horrible, horrible language. I've been listening to Taylor Swift on Channel 13 on Sirius, her channel. This album, The Life of a Showgirl, is just absolutely fantastic. I love Anti-Hero. I love Ophelia. I love all of her songs. The Life of a Showgirl with Sabrina Carpenter. I was saying to Mandy Matney and Liz Farrell earlier this week on Cup of Justice that the sky is the limit for this young woman. She's 35 years old. She's going to be doing this till she's 65. Everything she touches turns to gold. She's a poet. She's connected with the people. She's a tremendous musician and a lyricist. Just an extraordinary, extraordinary role model in young American. P. Diddy ended up getting 4 years and 2 months, which was much less than the guidelines of 7 years required for his conviction of prostitution. The government wanted 12 years. He's going to get credit for 14 months already served. So he'll end up serving about a little less than 3 years. There's no parole in the federal system. So he'll serve a little less than 3 years. It's going to be in a maximum security prison. I will tell you that I think they sentenced the man more than they sentenced the crime in this case. State court conviction of prostitution is 30 days in jail. And I think he's definitely being prosecuted for the freak offs and all the other repugnant things that he's done. But it is a very long sentence for the conviction that he got. Now, if he was convicted of RICO, that would have been a major, major different story. But he wasn't. So Trump said that he would consider giving him a pardon. Trump also said he would consider to give Ghislaine Maxwell a pardon. Her case was rejected by the United States Supreme Court. If she gets a pardon, I really think that the far right, including Marjorie Taylor Greene and a lot of the other hard, rabid, firebrand Republicans, are going to go ape crap. The third death this summer occurred on somebody trying to scale the El Capitan granite wall in Wyoming and Yellowstone. There's a great um, documentary on that where the first rock climber did it without any restraints or ropes. This person fell to his death. Mark Sanchez, who used to be quarterback for the Jets, went to USC, went to the Eagles and a couple other teams. Remember the famous butt fumble that he had with the Jets? He was drunk before he was going to do a NFL football game the next night. Um, there was a truck driver who was emptying grease traps, hard of hearing, 69 years old. Evidently, Mark Sanchez went up to him. The guy couldn't hear and got in his face, and Sanchez beat the tar out of him, and the guy stabbed Mark Sanchez. And so in the hospital, everybody thought Sanchez was the victim. It turns out he wasn't. He was originally arrested on 5 misdemeanors, and they upgraded it to a felony. Um, Jane Goodall, who was an absolute pioneer on primates, she died. I think her work was so instrumental in us learning so much more about gorillas and monkeys. Turns out that the gorillas fight wars. Turns out that gorillas are devious. Turns out that gorillas um, commit murder. Turns out that they kill their young and that they actually eat meat. And all this was learned by Jane Goodall, um, implanting herself and becoming one of them and observing them over years and years and years of time. Originally, she wasn't even a college graduate, just an amazing woman. The Kansas City Chiefs are not the same, folks. They lost to the Jaguars earlier this week on an amazing play by uh, Trevor Edwards. He was extraordinary. He slipped twice, fell on his back, got up, and made it into the end zone at the end of the game. And they won, I think, 27-24. Chris Jones, their great defensive player, um, wasn't in on that play, kind of was hanging back on walking on the in the end zone. So that was a strange thing. But the Chiefs are not the same. My Birds lost to Denver, so they are no longer undefeated. Um, Joe Flacco is no longer with the Cleveland Browns. He's now with the Cincinnati Bengals. First time the Bengals and the Browns ever completed a trade during the season. He's a journeyman quarterback, over 40 years old. He's not your answer, but the quarterback that the Bengals have now is 0-3. Browning, I think, is his name since Joe Burrow got turf toe and had to get his surgery. So that's an interesting thing. I think A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts are at odds with each other, and it wouldn't surprise me if Jalen Brown is traded during the season or after this season. They're not using him correctly. The Yankees last night stayed off defeat. Aaron Judge came through. They were losing 6-1. Aaron Judge punched a home run in the fourth inning for more of his, becoming part of the Yankees' historical lore. So now let's go to some audience questions. Um, Techwood83 said, what type of sentence do you think RJ May is going to get? I think RJ May is going to get a 20-year sentence or pretty much close to it. It'll run concurrently with all the other charges he pled guilty to, but I don't think he's going to get a low sentence. I don't think Judge Curry is going to do that to a politician who committed those kind of heinous acts. Valerie Hallery said, how does one file suit against the South Carolina government? She just wants to know, well, you obviously have to get a lawyer, and there has to be either a civil rights violation, a 1983 violation, a 1981 violation, a government entering into a contract and breaching that contract, some type of cause of action. Nancy French wants to know what is happening with the pedophile magistrate judge in Charleston. That's a good question. We're all watching that closely. We also watched the Beaufort police officer last week who finally got fired, who drew his weapon, and thankfully it was being recorded by phone against some young teenagers who he claimed shouldn't have been in the neighborhood. You wonder how many times this guy has drawn a weapon as a police officer. He was off duty, he went back and got it. Um, the officers that I know don't brag about um, drawing their weapon or discharging their weapon. I had a case, Zachary Hammond, and John Tiller was the police officer that shot Zachary Hammond. Turns out he shot him in the back, not in the chest like he claimed as he was driving away in his car. And John Tiller, it is alleged in that case, made statements that he was going to kill somebody in the line of duty before he was done being a police officer. And um, he was overheard on a recording device as he stepped over my client after he shot him and said something to the tune of, I got me one, or I shot one. I don't find police officers bragging about shooting people. It's something that they don't do. The best police officers go their whole lives without ever taking their gun out of their holster or discharging it. Under the government shutdown, can the federal government legally fire workers during a shutdown? Yes, they can. They absolutely can close departments and do this and rearrange. And again, when you shut down a department or you furlough employees and they have to go get it's hard to put the egg back together again. What happens if a shutdown delays your benefits, slows your retirement processing? It's all going to be the subject of negotiations. As I said earlier, Trump wants to pay some workers, but not others, for their back pay when the furlough is done. Again, we went through the Pete Hegseth speech last week. We're starting to really now hear the rank and file generals and admirals talking about how highly offended they were by what Hegseth was announcing to them, that it looks like that they're keep increasing the standards increasing to where the females are not going to be able to achieve those standards. See what else we got here. We talked about YouTube paying Trump $24.5 million to settle the lawsuit where they took him off the YouTube channel after the January 6th insurrection. Again, that's just paying him off. That's just bending at the knee. And there's a lot of, just so you know, a lot of law firms are not representing people before governmental proceedings because they're afraid of the retribution from the Trump administration. And I think that goes against the rule of law because everyone has a right to their attorneys. The new Murdaugh Hulu series drops October 15th. It's bringing a renewed attention to the story that shook not only South Carolina, but the entire world. Liz and Mandy, as I said, deserve all the real credit. They were sounding the alarm before anybody else was paying attention to the Murdaughs. And I believe this will be one of the most accurate portrayals of this saga in determining how the truth was uncovered. I appreciate everyone who's reached out and commented and supported my post over the past few weeks. I truly appreciate the love and support that I do get. To answer some of your questions, I'm not sure if I'm going to be portrayed in the series, and that's okay by me. I mean, I've gotten more attention and more recognition for the Murdaugh case than I ever could have asked for or deserved. As I said to my partner, 3 lifetimes worth this morning. And I'm very grateful for everybody who's done that. Grateful for Mandy and David and Liz that let me be on the COJ podcast with them. Grateful to all the clients, the Satterfield family, and the other clients and victims that I represented with my partner, Ronnie Richter. Glad to have represented 6 of the jurors that rendered verdicts in the Murdaugh case, as well as ongoing Sandy Smith in connection with Stephen Smith's death. So, look, Hollywood, they got to write the story the way they want it. It also, stuff has to be edited. You can only include so much. So, Hollywood takes liberties, and it's all part of the storytelling process. But I am so excited to see it. And at the end of the day, it's not who gets the screen time. It's about reporting and portraying what is right. So everybody subscribe to my YouTube channel, EB Eric Bland EB. It's linked to my biographies that you'll catch next week. You could get all the other previous Anything But Bland weekly updates. Go to www.blandrichter.com and buy the book Anything But Bland this year for some stocking stuffers or for gifts for family, loved ones, and friends. So that's it. EB out. See you next week.